We already have questions. I know God is all powerful and that when bad things happen, we should look for what purpose it might serve. But it is hard to wrap my head around, hard to wrap my head around, I think that's what I'll say, head around why he doesn't intervene more. Frankly, me too. And I think most of us in this room would agree, right? To be able to wrap your head around like, so why wouldn't God intervene more? That's a natural reaction. As I mentioned earlier, part of the thing that I've been thinking about this week is I've been thinking about all the times, and I said this already, all the times that God does intervene that I don't even see it. So this idea of why doesn't God intervene more? I'm not kidding you. I believe it's 1,000 times a day in my life alone. And then you start multiplying that around here and around live stream and around, it's unthinkable how vigilant, how loving, how protecting our God actually is. And yet you see these moments. I mean, do you remember September 11th? You guys alive then? Yeah, a lot of us were. I remember thinking, oh, here we go. This is a new world. This is gonna happen all the time. And we've had our share of tragedy since, but it's not what I thought it would be. And I think about how could that possibly be with all the evil in the world, all the people who don't like what our country's doing or stand for, and right or wrong, I don't really care about that, but all the people who are coming against us. How could it be that we've been so preserved and protected? How could it be? Because God is more active than we think. He's intervening all the time. The question for my heart this week is, does it have to be 100%? Can God never let evil through? And if he does, if he did that, if he never allowed evil to show itself, what would that do to me? What would that do to us? I think that would make me love this world way too much. It would make me feel so secure here that I would miss the greater thing that God has prepared me for. I think it would help me just ignore the evil in my own life. If God did it 100% of the time, I think it would give us a very unrealistic view of what's actually happening in the spiritual forces behind the scenes. Most of us don't ever think about evil. Really. Not here. I mean, some parts of the world, sure, but not here until something like this happens. And so if God never allowed evil to be seen, to show itself for what it is, think about how just deluded we would be through all of this. So, I won't say anymore. That's the best I can do for that one. This is a very hard and emotional topic for both believers and non-believers. Yeah, amen. You should be me trying to talk about it right now. It is hard. It's been a tough week. How do you respond to non-believers when they ask, where is God in the wake of tragedies? One of the most profound things that we have as Christians that no other religion can claim is that we don't have a God who stands outside of suffering, protected on Mount Olympus, just kind of watching us suffer under the weight of evil, saying, hey, good luck down there. See, that's a scheme that you have in most religions. And when people who don't know God or believe in God or don't understand him or see him as he is, that's kind of the picture that I think a lot of them have, that God is this removed being who's watching, saying, man, they're making a mess of it. I'm glad I'm up here, and is just kind of uninvolved. Just one of the remarkable differences about Christianity is that we have a God who subjected himself to our evil. So when God allows evil to happen, he's not allowing anything that he has not experienced himself. He's not putting us through anything, so to speak, that he has not put himself through. So God doesn't stand apart from our suffering, he doesn't stand apart from the evil in the world, but Jesus submitted himself to the evil agendas of evil men, of people like us. For a whole host of reasons. And these people who put Jesus to death, it wasn't because they were like psychopaths. It's because he did some really basic things that we all get. He failed to meet their expectations, and he didn't give them what they wanted, and he disappointed them. And you talk about small kinds of evil that blossom into something really big. That's what put Jesus to death on a cross. And so when we look at the God of the Bible, as we look at Jesus, we see one who doesn't stand outside of the evil and go, hey, it's too bad that happens, but I'm still good. No. He has lived through it, and he comes to us and he says, I understand. I understand the pain and the heartache that comes from evil in the world. I've walked through this myself, and I walk through this with you. But not only does he say he understands, he says, but that's why I sent my son into the world, to submit himself to evil, because although it looked like evil won, he was actually vanquishing evil, and there is a day when evil will be done away with. See, I think if you can just, and a lot of this isn't how we live our lives, and I'll save that for later, but if we can live like Jesus, if we can love like Jesus, we can show people the character of God. But part of the character of God is that God is never removed from our suffering. He is down in the trenches with us, and there's no other God out there, there's no other religion that makes that kind of claim. It makes our God unique, and it makes him uniquely compassionate in the midst of moments like this. Why does God let evil use his name to draw people? Dishonest evangelists that steal money from the vulnerable, or priests and pastors that take advantage of children? Man, that's a rough question. It's an honest question. But I guess in your mind, whoever's asking this question, what would it look like for God to not let people use his name? Would it be a lightning bolt for those people, the moment they do something wrong? Maybe, and maybe that would seem like a better way to go. The reality of our sinful nature, of the evil that lives inside of us, and I'm always cautious with this, because we can certainly look at the evil that lives inside of other people and go, man, what's wrong with those people? Why does God let them even pretend that they're his people? And some of these people may just be complete charlatans. They may not believe anything. Some of these may be people who have allowed, they are people who believe in God, and they started off with good intentions, but they've allowed evil to blossom in their lives, and they've ended up in a place that they never thought they would be, and certainly not where they intended to be. And so maybe it is that that God feels maybe it is that God feels some compassion for these people, just like we're all worthy of compassion. Now, I will say that in the Bible, in the New Testament, those who teach, those who stand up and speak for God, like priests and pastors or evangelists, people who take on that responsibility, they are held to a higher standard. And so there is a promise, and it's a pretty scary promise. So this is why none of us should aspire to do this, and this is why most days I just would rather do something else. Anyone have a good job for me, let me know, right? Because there is a sobering weight of responsibility and accountability placed on those who are who stand up and speak for God, because of the damage they can do in his name. And so the Bible speaks about how, hey, guys like me, we have to be really, really careful, and we will be held to account to a higher degree than most for the life that we live, especially for things like this, where people are victimized or hurt, and we're using the name of God to do it. We're actually using our position to hurt people. That is something that God declares as evil. But just like we talked about today, God allows a lot of evil to live in this world for a number of purposes, and it's hard for us to get our mind around that. But he's not calling that stuff good. Every one of us who fall into this kind of category will be held to account. And so I think for you, if you can just trust that God is just, and in the same way that you wouldn't want to deliver the judge's gavel into the hands of someone else to judge your life, you'd rather leave that in the hands of God, right? For these people as well, I think we have to be humble enough to leave the role of judge up to God, and to leave the gavel in his hand, and to let him judge in a way that he knows is right and fair and just. I think it's really dangerous whenever we do that to other people, because I know you don't want to hand that gavel over to someone else in your life. In an article this week, commandments say, hold on, I need my glasses. In an article this week, commandments say, thou shalt not kill. Yet in the Old Testament, God killed a multitude of people that sinned. How do we answer the author of this article? I didn't read the article. I know you're trying to be brief in the text. There's a lot of confusion about this, thou shalt not kill. The commandment that God gave from Mount Sinai, I know it is the fifth commandment, sometimes we number them differently, is thou shalt not murder. So taking a life can be a just thing. Murdering by nature is unjust. So the commandment isn't no one should ever kill, because we know moments when people should be killed. When a sniper is shooting at people and he's killing people, we would all say if a police officer has a shot at him to take out a sniper, to kill him, he should do it, because that's not murder, is it? It's taking a life, but it's not murder. Murder speaks to motive, it speaks to cause, it speaks to who you are and the responsibility that you have. Same with military. I think most of us would have a hard time saying, in no cases should there ever be soldiers who fight against evil people. Right, World War II. Think about what Hitler was doing to people. I mean, none of us would say like, hey, no one should ever pick up a gun and shoot a German soldier or try to take out Hitler. We would never say that, because that's not murder. It's killing. Now, killing is also problematic because life is sacred and we don't want to take life, we don't want to take liberties with life. It is truly something that God gave. But just to be clear, the commandment is not about killing, it's about murdering, which is a different thing. And so the question that you'd ask here is, if God decides to kill, if God decides to take a life, is he just or unjust? Is this anything that we would ever call murder? If God is the author of all life, if he's the giver of all life, and he's ultimately the judge, then he's actually been, within himself has the authority to decide who lives and dies. And so God is only doing what God can do. Sure, if anyone else was doing that, you could call it a lot of things, but God is not murdering. He's doing what he's entitled to do as the creator, as the judge of all of this. And even when we don't fully understand his reason or rationale, or it seems harsh, and let me just tell you, I've read through the Old Testament more than you, I'm sure. And as I do it, there are parts where I just go like, God, I don't understand. This seems extreme. This seems over the line. I'm there too, okay? There are moments where I just don't fully get it. And yet I'm reminded of a scripture that says, will not the judge of all the earth do right? And I go, God, I don't understand. I don't get this, but I trust you to be good. I know you're good. You're the judge, I'm not. And so it takes some humility for me to understand that God is doing something there that he is authorized to do, that he understands, that he's always just in doing. It just may be that I don't understand it. And so, it's difference between murder and killing, and it's also a humility. And goodness, when it comes to even earthly judges, can we have some humility? Because it's impossible for us to know the hearts of people, even to know the truth behind anything. And so when you sit in a judgment seat, it's a hard thing to do, and you're trying to find out what's true and right and what's just. It's difficult. And yet we talk about playing Monday morning quarterback, but we're playing like, I don't know, is it Friday afternoon judge all the time? Like we're doing that as if we know better, as if we're smarter. And that's just a really, really dangerous game to get into. One more question, or is that it for real? Because my clock says I got 1:30. Think I can do it? I'll try to do it in 1:30. Here we go. What's the functional difference between God causing evil and God allowing evil to happen? Thanks for letting me put you on the spot back there, Tech. What's the functional difference between God causing evil and God allowing evil to happen? Great question, by the way. We understand causation. I mean, just think about physics or anything else. Cause means you are the one who puts something into motion. So, I could push this and cause this chair to fall off the front of the stage. I'm the cause of it. I'm the actor. I'm the one who initiated action. Now, if Tim Ryman came out here with his guitar and he pushed this off the stage and I just kind of watched him do it, I didn't cause that. I allowed him to do it. So, there's a pretty basic difference between allowing causation and just staying back and let someone happen. I think the question is, but why if Tim's pushing this off the stage, why don't I step in and stop him? Because it could break the chair, it could hurt someone in the front row. Why don't I step in and stop him? And if I don't step in and stop him, am I somehow culpable for allowing him to do something that's evil. And the answer to this question, because it's a real question, it's a real tension, is I think the answer to this, if you don't understand this, is be a parent someday. Or if you are a parent, just think about what you have to do as a parent all the time, the decisions you have to make. Because there are plenty of times where you allow your kids to do things that you know might be harmful to them or even harmful to others, but you've told them a million times, you've put your foot down, at some point it's gonna damage the relationship if you keep micromanaging and controlling them, and so you let them go their own way. But you didn't cause it, because you told them, don't push the chair off, don't jump on the furniture, don't hit your sister, right? You told them a million times. Sometimes you let it go out. Why? Because sometimes that's the only way to teach a deeper lesson, to form people, to help people grab onto something else. Sometimes there's a deeper reason, and you know the reasons if you're a parent because you do it all the time. And I think it takes some humility with God to say, I'm not doing that one too. That's another question. I was looking for the other question. I'm done. I retire after this one. It really does. It takes some humility. It takes some humility for us to say, because in our minds we think, what could God possibly be allow? You know, what good could come out of this that God would allow this? And that's putting our own reason and minds higher than God's himself, and saying, God, you know, there's no way you can redeem this. There's no way that you can make this better. There's no way that you can work good through this. And that's a pretty arrogant claim. And I do it all the time. I have my moments of, God, there's no way. And yet I also have to have some humility to realize that's pretty arrogant of me. That if God allows something, then he probably sees something, he understands something that is deeper, more important than I do. And in fatherly concern, he sometimes lets people go their own way, which I prefer to being controlled and micromanaged and being his robot, frankly, you know, in my life. Do I want a God who controls my every move? If I don't want that for me, do I only want that for others? Where do you stop with that? But it's trusting that God is doing something, that he's a good father, that he's just. You know, today, again,